Welcome to this interactive presentation. Vinay, I hope you enjoy it.
All good. So we have fahed.qureshi from National University of Singapore. He is working as R&D manager at Center for Quantum Technologies in NUS Singapore in the area of scientific prototypes development. Prior to this, he was a senior research fellow at National University of Singapore Linga Lab, working in the areas of gas hydrate-based CO2 sequestration in the oceanic sediments with ExxonMobil. He was also a postdoc at Texas A&M University, where he did a project in the area of flow assurance and multi-phase flow with the Total Energies company. He has been awarded Emerging ExxonMobil Research Fellow Award twice and has authored more than 25 journals in the areas of gas hydrate. We would like to welcome fahed.qureshi for the IWGH IETS 2025. Yeah, over to Fahed.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Fahed is going to talk about the current and future outlook for carbon capture and storage technology. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so thank you so much for inviting me for the session today. I'm really grateful to you, and it was really awesome to know about different works being conducted across the world in the area of gas hydrates. My talk is today more towards the business side of CCS technologies, and I think it's one of the first times I will be working in this area or talking about this area. So without any further ado, I will start my presentation. So just a brief background about myself. So I have worked in the area of gas hydrate for almost 10 years now. I started working in this area back in 2015 in a joint project between Harvard University and Qatar University. So I was working in the area of gas hydrate mitigation and flow assurance. And at the same time, we were also looking into different aspects of solidified natural gas, like how you can use gas hydrate to transport methane over long distances. So that was another project I was doing along with gas hydrate mitigation and flow assurance. And then after that, I became a postdoc at Texas A&M University, where we were looking into electrical resistance tomography and multi-phase flow. So basically, we use this technology to see the different multi-phase flow pattern in opaque pipeline. And finally, I joined National University of Singapore back in 2019, where with Prof. Linga and Linga Lab, I worked in the area of CO2 sequestration in oceanic sediments. And I think Dr. Hari Prakash have covered a lot about it in his presentation, so I won't be covering or talking much about it. But recently, I have started focusing more now towards carbon market and technology readiness.
Fahed, can you hear me?
Yeah.
One request from the offline participants to go with slow pace so they can understand the English.
Okay, sure. Sorry about that.
It's
so
okay.
Today I'm going to be talking about my current interest in the carbon market and technology readiness level, and how we can take the technologies from the lab scale to actual commercial scale. So basically, I will be sharing with you a small case study where I will be comparing with you gas hydrate technology in comparison to geological sequestration technology, which I normally use it as a benchmark technology to compare the emerging CCS technologies with the geological sequestration. So the brief introduction about the presentation is like I'm going to give you a brief overview of carbon market, because I know a lot of you are working more on the lab side. So I will be giving you some details about the terminologies that we use in carbon market. And then we will be assessing the pros and cons of geological sequestration versus hydrate-based CO2 sequestration. And we will also be looking into current status and future outlook of the technologies, and we will be identifying key bottlenecks and solutions that are available for these technologies. So this is a graph recently that has been published on a Berkeley Labs website, and it shows like despite all the efforts that have been done in last 10 years, still the global average temperature is rising, and it's still a matter of great concern. And still we have a high CO2 emissions in the atmosphere from different industries, which calls for a prompt action. So it's good that we're working on different emerging CCS technologies like direct air capture, gas hydrates, but it's also important to accelerate the commercialization of this technology so that we can meet our zero carbon goals. And the current CCS market as of 2025 is around $8.9 billion. Now, these figures keep on fluctuating, but most suitable figure that I can give you is around 8 billion US dollars. And it's projected to go up to 50 billion US dollars by 2034. So basically, carbon itself is going to be a huge market by 2035. So we talk about AI, we should also now start talking about carbon market because it's also one of the emerging markets that are coming up in a few years' time. And these are some of the key drivers that drives a carbon market. So first is environmental mandates, as you know, carbon tax, which has been introduced by a lot of countries. Supported policies like tax credits based on the emission control that you do in your companies. Then technological innovation that's happening around the world. Different technologies are being designed and being tested. And the corporate commitments, how committed the corporates are towards their net zero goals. So these are all key drivers that helps in the expansion of CCS market, which is rapidly expanding at the moment. So now I will give you an overview of carbon market. So basically, I know there are a lot of students here. So what is a carbon market? So if I tell you in a very simple term, so carbon market is basically a place where you can sell and buy carbon credits. Okay, so carbon credits is basically a credit that you buy from the market against the emissions that you're going to do. And that's a kind of a money that you pay to buy that carbon credit. And it's actually exchangeable. So if you're not using that carbon credit, you can sell it back to the other company. And in terms of carbon market, there are two key markets. One is a compliance market, which is regulated market, okay, which follows international laws and regulation. And the other one is voluntary carbon market, which is basically operates outside the mandatory regulations and is supported by companies and organizations. Carbon credit is basically, you can say, a kind of a certificate or permit that represents the reduction or removal of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. Okay. Is it all okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And the CO2 equivalent is basically a standardized unit that is used to measure the global warming potential of different greenhouse gases. And then we have allowance. Allowance is a permit to emit the ton of CO2. Okay, so it's a cap unit that is provided by the industry that this is the only emission that you're allowed to emit into the atmosphere. That's called allowance. So how do a technology generate a carbon credit? So in order for any technology to generate a carbon credit, it should have meet these 9 factors. Number 1 is additionality. Number 2 is permanence. Number 3 is MRV, which is measurement, reporting, verification. And number 4 is no double counting. So you need to develop a system where the credit is only counted once, not multiple times. And that's where we need a blockchain technology. Then there should be no leakages. And at the same time, it should comply with the legal and regulatory requirements. And the other terms that we use in the market are liquidity, which basically is a measure of how easily an asset can be converted into cash without affecting its price. And high liquidity basically means that the carbon credits can be bought or sold quickly, which is good for the industry. And carbon exchange is basically, if you're not using the carbon credit, you can sell it to the other industry. And MRV is basically measurement, reporting, and verification. So for example, if you're doing geological sequestration, you need to make sure that the carbon dioxide is properly sequestered and it doesn't go back into the environment. And we have another components like carbon tax, which is basically a tax which is levied on the carbon contents of fossil fuels. And this is the overview of carbon tax right now across the world, from Sweden to Austria. So you can see that it varies from $48 to $137 US dollars, depending on the place. So this is how CCS looks like, basically. So basically, there are 4 key components of CCS right now. One is carbon capture, which is done by different technology like direct air capture or gas hydrate. Then the CO2 needs to be transported, and then it needs to be stored and also utilized in different processes. And this is the overview of CCUS value chain. So you can see there are different carbon capture sources, then there's the capture and conversion processes, then there are captured products, and finally, there are different sequestration and utilization pathways. So what is a geological sequestration? So basically, the CO2 can be captured, compressed into the supercritical fluid, and injected into deep underground into porous rock formation. And these can be depleted oil and gas reservoirs, deep saline aquifers, or unminable fault seams. And there are four key mechanisms that play in part in the geological sequestration. Number one is the structure trapping. Number two is the residual trapping. Number three is the solubility trapping. And number four is the mineral trapping. So what are the advantages of geological sequestration? Number first is that it offers large storage capacity because they are deep saline aquifer, which can offer an immense potential for storing vast quantities of CO2. Second thing is that it's mature. This technology has been there for 3 decades now, and there are a lot of projects that have been successful in the area of geological sequestration. So it's a pretty mature technology. And we do have an existing infrastructure. So it's being already practiced around the globe. And the other most important aspect is that you can use this technology for enhanced oil gas recovery, which is the fourth key ability. But at the same time, there are certain disadvantages of geological sequestration. Like, for example, there's a risk of leakage. There's difficult to find the suitable sites around the globe. And the third thing is the monitoring requirements can be really difficult at times. So you need to make sure that whatever CO2 you're putting inside stays over there for a long period of time. And also there have been some reports that sometimes if you inject a lot of CO2, it can induce the seismicity. So this is the overall geological sequestration outlook. So currently it's one of the most established CCS technologies in the world, which goes from TRL7 to 3L9. And the cost is estimated to be between 5 to 50 per ton of CO2. And this does not include the capture cost. It just includes the sequestration cost. And then it's commercially viable. So it's already established that this is a good technology and it's being used for generating carbon credit. And in the future, it will keep on expanding, okay? Because there's still research going on in this technology in terms of monitoring the amount of CO2 that you sequester in any rock. And in terms of the carbon market, so there are carbon credits which are available for geological sequestration project. So basically each ton of CO2 that is permanently stored can help you to generate 1 carbon credit. And this 1 carbon credit can value between $45 to maybe $120, depending on the region. And then there's a measurement, reporting, and verification process, which is very robust for geological sequestration technology. And also it abides by the regulatory schemes of European Union. So it's a pretty mature technology. As you can say, it's a benchmark technology for the other technologies that we compare with. And also it's available on carbon exchanges. So basically you can trade your carbon credits for this technology. And in terms of Singapore context, of course, right now the carbon tax is $25 per ton, but it's going to rise to $80 per ton. So which will make this carbon credits even more valuable with the period of time. So now let's get back to gas hydrate-based CO2 sequestration, which Dr. Hari has already covered in his presentation. So the idea about gas hydrate is that gas hydrate itself is denser than seawater, which makes it a suitable medium to get injected into saline systems like deep oceanic sediments, where it can be stored for long period of a time. And our research team at Linga Lab has already demonstrated that if you inject CO2 as gas hydrate in oceanic sediments, is likely to be stable for long period of a time. So these are certain advantages that hydrate-based sequestration technology offers. Number one is the high storage density. So it offers really high storage density because for 1 unit, you can store up to 160 to 180 unit volumes of gas. Then it have a self-sealing property. The hydrates tend to provide a sealing mechanism. And at the same time, if you're putting it inside the oceanic sediment, there's another sealing that is provided to this gas hydrate. And there's a vast potential storage sites that are available, which are available in the Hadal zones around the ASEAN region where we can do this process. And since it's denser than seawater, so even if and the thermodynamic conditions in the deep oceanic sediments are such that even if the CO2 by chance, even though the chances are very low, it is a phase change, is going to get converted back into gas hydrates. But there are also some disadvantages. And one of the disadvantages is limited operational experience. It's still on the research and development phase, and there are limited large-scale field tests that have been conducted on gas hydrate-based CO2 sequestration technology, which is basically a major bottleneck, which is preventing its commercialization. Then there are other concerns like stability concerns, environmental impact on ocean ecosystem needs to be more investigated, cost and energy intensity, and the dissolution risk, which comes with this technology. And in terms of TRL levels, right now, hydrate-based CO2 sequestration is between 2 to 4. So it's still in a very early stage. And a lot of work is needed to bring it to the TRL 7 and 9 so that it can really compete with the current geological sequestration technology available. And the cost of sequestration is viable. It has been estimated between $48 to $450 per ton in the literature. And still the work is being conducted by different research groups to come up with a more accurate number. And commercial viability, no yet commercially viable. So no, it has not been proven that it's commercially viable. So no large-scale commercial scale plants have been in operation so far on the large scale. So the future outlook of gas hydrate is like they have a lot of potential, and people acknowledge that, investors acknowledge that. But we need to focus on certain areas. For example, the long-term stability of CO2 hydrates. We need to understand any potential environmental impact that these hydrates can have on marine ecosystem. Then we need to develop cost-effective and energy-efficient injections and monitoring technologies for extreme environment. And at the same time, we need to further check and research on CO2 methane exchange in order to make sure that if we are putting CO2 inside the methane reservoir and we're trying to develop an exchange system, it doesn't pollute the environment further. In terms of carbon credits, so there are no carbon credits right now available for hydrate-based CO2 sequestration technologies. MRV system has not been stated so far for gas hydrate technologies. There are issues with the verification technologies. So basically no field test has been conducted. So it's very difficult to take this technology into the carbon market and develop carbon credits about it. And also they are not available on carbon exchange right now. So my conclusion for the talk is like geological sequestration is a very mature and widely deployed technology, while gas hydrate-based sequestration technology is still catching up with geological sequestration technologies. And in order to make it commercial and to bring it to the market, we need to do some fundamental research on the long-term stability, robust MRV methodologies, and at the same time, we need to tap into the potential storage capacity of these of gas hydrate-based technology. And in order to mature technology, definitely we need collaboration and more funding in this technology so that we can bring it to the commercial scale. So now you guys must be thinking, what was the point of having this talk today, talking about the commercial aspect, talking about the carbon credits? The point is like, currently we are planning to develop a digital repository system for emerging CCS technologies. So basically, we will be developing a kind of a digital platform where we are going to use different analytical tools to assess this technology so that the key investors which are sitting in the carbon market can know about these technologies and more investment can come into these technologies in the future. So this is how a prototype of a platform will look like. It's more like a kind of an app where you can go and you can look at what's happening in different CCS technology areas, what developments are taking place, and we will be using AI-based power technologies and blockchain technologies to make sure that that the research that's been going on in this area gets into the market, and at the same time, more investment can come into this market. So thank you. That's all for my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very interesting talk. But for our country, I think it is not the most important thing how to do CO2 sequestration, I think, in my opinion. But I have a question. For example, if we want to do some economical estimation and have a possibility to compare different strategies of CO2 sequestration, we can understand how we can capture CO2 and how you can compare. Do you have any technologies, for example, which you use to compare how to capture CO2?
So thank you for that question. So basically, if you just want to do a very general comparison of different technologies, you can always use the techno-economic analysis and life cycle assessments. So these are one of the two crucial tools that can be used for assessing the feasibility of any technology. It could be direct air capture, it could be gas hydrates technologies. And then you can benchmark these technologies against the other mature technologies, like I have mentioned, geological sequestration technologies in saline aquifer or for enhanced hydrocarbon.
I want to clarify.
Fahed, there are a few more questions. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
There is no need to clarify because there is no good
Okay.
answer.
So
But I want to ask which kind of technology to promote gas hydrate formation, to capture, or what? We cannot do any economical.
So based on
comparison without
your
this,
presentation, the participants wants to know how we can go ahead with your slides or your suggestions based on for the storage or the formation from the point of CCUS technologies.
Okay, so can you repeat the question? So what do you want me to comment on?
Participants wants to know the first stage of gas hydrate technology based on your presentations. Are they going to store or something?
So basically, thank you for asking me that question. So I think as Prof. Puri has mentioned, there have been a lot of fundamental work that has already been done in the area of gas hydrates, CO2 sequestration. So we have found the promoters that can be used to accelerate the formation of gas hydrate. Now we need to focus on some pilot scale projects where we can basically do the carbon capture and storage using gas hydrate on the pilot scale level. When I'm thinking about pilot scale, I'm talking about tons now. I'm not talking about small reactors, I'm talking about the large scale reactors. And not only we need to do that, we also need to develop techniques to make sure and to get enough data to make sure that whatever CO2 that we are capturing in these gas hydrates, or we are storing it into sediments or in other sediments, it can stay there for a very long time. So for that, you need to measure. So we need to develop new type of measuring techniques that can help us to assess the data. So right now, generation of data, I think, is a key on the pilot scale that can really help to bring investment from the market into these technologies, and we can scale up these technologies faster. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Fahed. So, Dr. Fahed, can you check if there are any questions online by the online participations in the chat box?